Everyone, thank you for joining the session. My name is Valeriy Svydenko. I work at Red Hat and I am Eclipse Che committer. So today I will present you how to customize your own online IDE with Devfile. As an online IDE, we have Eclipse Che, and I will talk a bit about it. Also, I'll explain what is Devfile and which structure it has. We'll have a demo. I'll try to create a fully functional Devfile. As an example, I'll show how to prepare in an environment to develop Quarkus applications in Eclipse Che. Then we will see which the benefits we have with Devfile. The Eclipse Che is Kubernetes native IDE for developer teams. It provides Kubernetes native developer workspaces, and the workspaces inside Che are Kubernetes pods, and everything has been containerized. Editor, plugins, tools, all are working inside of containers, and you can bring your application runtimes directly inside your workspaces. The editor, which is packaged by default, is based on Eclipse Che to provide VS Code-like experience. There is built-in support for language server protocol and debug adapter protocol, and there is compatibility with VS Code extensions. Also, in Che, it's very easy to swap your editor. It's also possible to use Eclipse Dirigible, Jupyter Notebook, or even Eclipse IDE inside the workspace of Eclipse Che. Che has two registries, the plugin registry and the file registry. In the file registry, you register all the workspaces that you want to have: Python Devfile, C# Devfile, Java Devfile, and all these Devfiles reference plugins that are living in the plugin registry. The Che plugin is an entity that wraps VS Code extensions or their plugins. So what is Devfile? Devfile is a YAML file that describes and defines development environment in Che. Here you can see the structure of a Devfile. Fundamentally, there are three parts of the file. The first part is project. It's where you define your source code repository. That is optional. I mean, if you don't want to clone some project into your workspace, you can just skip this part. The second part is components. A component can be editor, where you can see the project structure, coding, or making another operations. And another type of component is plugin. It contains all development tools like language support, for example, Java language server, or some debugger tools. So we can bring all tooling inside the workspace. And also environment, it's another type of component. It could be build, runtime, or test environment. It depends on what you need in your development process. For example, you need one container for building an application, another one for testing and for running. This part is also optional. And the last part of the Devfile is commands that you want to bring inside the development environment. And they could be a command to build your application, to run tests, to debug it, to run the application, or command that you or your team usually use when develop the application. Let's take a look at the file examples. It is a simplest one. It just contains editor, which is included by default, and it has just 3 lines. Another one example which describes developer environment to work with C# application. It describes one project which will be cloned, one plugin which provides support for C# language, and dev environment to build and run the application. And also a few commands to build, run, and install some dependencies inside the environment. Let's talk a bit more about the structure of the file. So the top element is API version. This section is required and it must have, and it is how you specify which API version you are using. The next part is metadata. This section is also required, and in this case, name is specified as the name of this workspace. We also have the option of name prefix, in which case the system will generate the rest of the name. Using generate name means that a user can have multiple instances of this workspace at the same time. Another part is projects. This section is optional and tells the workspace where to find the project that will be included. In this case, we are pointing to default GitHub repository located, default Git repository located on GitHub, and you can specify multiple projects for a workspace. And the type of the project can be a zip file as well. Next is attributes. This part is optional and can pretty much define anything you wish. In this case, persist volumes mean that ephemeral mode is activated. In ephemeral mode, workspace has no PVC attached. It means that unless you commit your changes to the Git repo, any work done will be lost, but it makes the workspace perform better. The biggest part is components. It describes elements or containers for editor, for plugins and environments, and it must have attribute with name type. Type specifies the component, and it could be Docker image, Che plugin, Che editor, Kubernetes, or OpenShift. And each component can have alias. It is the name used in other places of these Devfile-like commands can refer to this component. This attribute is optional, but it must be unique in the Devfile if specified. Another attribute from component is mount sources, which makes the source code available to the container. And if component has type Docker image, it also should have attribute image it's a link to Docker image, for example, on Docker Hub, and this image should be a bit customized for OpenShift specific technology. Another attribute is endpoints, and the endpoint that the Docker image exposes. And the last one, volumes, which defines a directory within the container that is available to this workspace. It could be useful for a folder with dependencies to don't download them each time when we build the project. And the last part is commands. In this section, you can define custom commands that are available to the user. Typically, this is where you will specify command line commands that can be run from within the IDE rather than dropping to the command line and typing long command line, and can be reused. Also, we can use macros instead of hard-coded. In that example, we have macros for project root directory. And it's demo time. In the demo, I'm going to show you how to create your own Devfile to work with Quarkus applications. A few words about Quarkus. Quarkus is a cloud-native stack for writing Java microservices and serverless applications. It's just to be quick. And let's say we would like to start the Quarkus Hello World microservice application tutorial from GitHub repository. And we need to set up an environment in Eclipse Che to work with this application. Here is the GitHub page of this application. It's Quarkus Quick Starts. And I also have deployed Eclipse Che into my local Minikube. And to start set up an environment, it is easier to start with existing Devfile. For example, I'll choose Java Vertex Devfile. And I'm going to open configuration window where I have the file editor, and in this editor I can change this Devfile. So let's start doing it step by step. Let's start with projects component, and we have to change location of this project. Let's copy GitHub URL of our Quarkus Quick Starts and replace it as a value of location. Now let's change the name of the project. The type is Git, and also I don't want to clone all these submodules. I just want to clone one of them. For example, it is getting started. I have to clone this name and add another attribute in project part. It is sparse checkout gear. I can use auto-completion here and add name of this module. Let's save the file and go to components. Here I have two components. The first one is Che plugin, which describes support for Java language, and another one is the dev environment. I know that plugin Che plugin registry already contains Quarkus plugin, which provides support to work with Quarkus applications, and I can go to plugins view to add this plugin. In plugins view, which describes Che plugin registry, I can find the Quarkus plugin, Quarkus tools with Java 11. These plugins wraps for VS Code extensions. It is VS Code Java extension, VS Code Java debugger, VS Code Quarkus extension, and also VS Code Java test runner. And I will deactivate language support for Java because it is already included in Quarkus plugin. Let's save these changes and go back to the file editor to check if our plugin was added. We can see that Quarkus plugin was added into this Devfile, and let's go to another component, which is dev container, and let's edit it step by step. So what we have here, we have mount sources, which is true, and it works for us because I want to have a project in that container. Another attribute is endpoints with port 8080. It also works for us because our application will be run on that port, and we can open that port to check how our application looks like. Another attribute is memory limit. We can increase it. Let's do that. Another attribute is type with value Docker image, and the image is Che Java 8, but we also have Che Quarkus image, which provides Maven, Gradle, Java 11, and the Graal VM, all what we need to work with Quarkus applications. Next attribute is alias, and this Maven, we can change it to Quarkus. Okay. Next attribute is and. It describes environment variables which will be injected in this container. Right now we have Maven config, Java options, and we can proceed with these variables. And also we have volumes here, .m2 folder, and it works for us because our application is Maven applications. So I don't want to rebuild. I don't want to download each time dependencies when I rebuild my application. So let's try to save these changes. I see the error that commands reference to wrong component. It's because I changed alias. I write it Quarkus, but existed commands reference to component Maven. So we have to change this component as well. Let's do this. Okay, and try to save it again. Now it's okay. So let's proceed editing the commands. Let's change first command as Maven package. We also have to change working directory. It's attribute which describes in which directory this command should be executed in the container. We have to replace project name because right now we have Quarkus Quick Start project. Let's edit. And also this project has submodule, which is getting started. Okay, let's add it into the end. And working directory is ready. Now let's change command line. It should be Maven package. Okay, this command is ready. Let's change another one. Run Quarkus application. Working directory should be the same as in previous command. Let's just copy paste it. And command line should be Maven compile Quarkus dev. Okay, and this command is ready. We can proceed with these two commands, and just remove another commands which we have in that old file. And also we can see that this file contains debug configuration. It describes configuration to debug application. And it works for us because our application will be run as a Java process on port 5005. And then we can attach to that process and debug the application. Let's save that this file. It's okay. And let's click open button to start the workspace from this Devfile. Workspace should be start initializing, and what happened here, it creates everything that inside the file, and it creates the definition of Kubernetes pod. It starts to pull all images for all containers, and then when all images will be pulled, it will start them. Depending if you have all containers already cached, it will take a bit few time. But we still have, wait a minute. You can see that plugins were initialized. And just need to wait when images will be pulled. We can see all logs in this window. So if something went wrong, we can see it in that part. Right now, it's process of downloading plugins. Pulling images. And our workspace almost done, almost ready. So now we can see Che editor. Here we can open project view, for example, and see that our project is here with this module. We can open some Java file. When we open Java file, Java language server starts initializing. And let's open workspace view. In this view, we can see containers which we configured. It's our dev container Quarkus, is named Quarkus, which contains two commands, Maven package and run Quarkus application, and endpoint with port 8080. In the plugins, we can see VS Code Quarkus extension here. And let's execute run Quarkus application command. This command should build and compile our application. It's also takes some time to download all dependencies because it's first time. We can open the debug view to see that our debug configuration was added as well. Now language server is still activating and the project is building. Now we can see that Quarkus plugin was activated and it is ready. We see the welcome page from that plugin, and we can use Java language servers to read some documentation, to use auto-completion, to write some code, and code navigation, and another language features. And now our application is ready. It is running on port 8080. We can click open link to see how it looks like. It's our application. Let's go to hello endpoint. And let's change the value and try to reload this page to do hot redeploy. Our changes are here. So basically, it's ready to work with Quarkus applications. Let's go back to our workspace. And we want to share our environment with other people. For that, I just need to copy this content of the file and, for example, create a gist file. The file YAML. I will add this content here and save it. Now I can build the link to share this the file to start a workspace. For this, I will use hosted Che OpenShift IO. And I'm going to use factory service. I have to add F, and URL is my Devfile. And let's click this URL. It should start initializing another workspace by using this Devfile, my new Devfile which I created. And developer environment should be the same as I described it before. We can see that Che OpenShift IO is start initializing new workspace. We can see logs from that process, and it's ready to work on other instance. That's about it. That's it about demo. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay, and we can see benefits of using Devfile. So Devfile is a concept that is close to define what is the workspace and how it runs inside Che, inside of cloud platform. It's easy to integrate. You can integrate the Devfile in any kind of tools, and developers can create a developer environment from this Devfile from anywhere, anytime, just calling an URL to get developer environment. And also it's simple to share, so someone can customize it to a particular task and add some plugins and send it to another developers. So that's some useful links where you can ask questions, contribute, reading documentation, or try it. And thank you for joining this session. I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much. So there is some questions. The first one, workspace definition is the file close to being standardized and other collaborations in the community and industry to reach standards. So the file has own structure and own API to specify a developer environment, and by using this API you can define this environment, and I don't think that is another standards to read them. Another question, how can I point to a plugin registry or the file that is on private GitHub account or another private location? So if you have own plugin registry in some private location, you can build your private registry and deploy it on the cluster where Che was deployed before, and point that registry to use them for Che, and then it will be available to use it. And about the file, you can just copy the content of the file and share with someone to reproduce that environment on another site. Another question is, does Eclipse Che support diagram creating, editing frameworks like GMF in Eclipse? Does Eclipse Che support diagram creating? It will be possible if it has such plugin which support GMF diagram. Right now, custom default plugin registry doesn't contain such plugin or ability to work with diagram. I think that's all. And thank you again for joining the session.